Hello there. My name is Franklin Pierce. I was the United States of America's 14th president. But first, I guess I should start at the beginning. I was born into a large family on November 23, 1804, in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. My father, Benjamin Pierce, fought alongside George Washington in the American Revolution, but had never gone to school. My mother's name was Anna Kendrick. There were 8 children in my family, so I had 7 siblings. In order, our names were Benjamin, Nancy, John, Harriet, Charles, Franklin, Charlotte, and Henry. There we all are, parents and all. Fortunately, I got a good education. I went to a private boarding school at age 11. I got homesick, so I walked home, which was 14 miles away from the school. My father drove me half of the way back and made me walk the rest of the way. At the age of 15, I attended Bowdoin College. I later ended 5th in my college class. I had many government and military-related jobs. After college, I studied law in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and I was licensed in 1827. Then, in 1829, I was elected as the New Hampshire state legislator. I was only 24, and I was the youngest member, but I was also a gifted speechmaker. Just to brag on myself a little bit. I continued practicing law until 1833, when I was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. Then, in 1837, I was elected to the U.S. Senate. I served for 5 years, then I resigned in 1842, and returned to New Hampshire to practice law. In 1844, I helped the James K. Polk campaign, and I was offered the job as the Attorney General. I refused the job and stayed in New Hampshire until 1846, when I enlisted to fight in the War on Mexico. I was injured in 1847, so returned home to New Hampshire. Now I bet you're wondering, did I have a family? And the answer to that is a big yes. Although, it could also be said that it was a big no. In 1834, I married Jane Means Appleton. Say hi to the people, Jane. Hello! Our first child, Franklin Jr., was born in 1836 and died 3 days after his birth. Our second child, Frank Robert, was born in 1839 and died at the age of 4. Benjamin, our third child, was born in 1841. After I had won the presidential election, we were on a train going from Boston to our home in Concord. The train jumped its tracks, and our train car slid down an embankment. Our 12-year-old Benjamin was instantly killed. That happened in 1843, and we were left childless and heartbroken. Like most other presidents, I had to have a campaign, election, and inauguration. I was called a dark horse. A dark horse is a surprise candidate and a political unknown. After I'd served in the U.S. Senate, Jane had made me promise that I wouldn't run for an office again. However, at the Democratic Convention, I was nominated by somebody else and had no say in it. My running mate was William R. King and ran against Winfield Scott. Yeah, I laughed at his name too. Scott messed up by giving his views on slavery, which upset people. In the election, Scott, my opponent, Winfield Scott, got 42 electoral votes and 1.4 million popular votes. I got 254 electoral votes and 1.6 million popular votes. I won the election. My inauguration was in March 1853. Roger Taney swore me in as the 14th President of the United States of America. I gave a 20-minute, 3,319-worded speech from memory, and my wife did not attend. Jane was mourning, so the usual inauguration balls and parties were canceled. I had a sorrowful life in the White House. While living in the White House, Jane, my wife, rarely appeared in public. She had her aunt serve as the White House hostess for her. Jane mourned our children's deaths and eventually became sick. I found the White House to be a joyless place, cold, cheerless, and lonely. I lost support from the people. We actually left the White House before my term had ended, and Jane had to be carried out. Now, I had very few accomplishments as president. One of the things that I did was authorize the Gadsden Purchase, which bought Arizona and New Mexico from Mexico. Another accomplishment I had was signing the Kansas and Nebraska Act, which split Kansas and Nebraska in half. I also supported the Treaty of Kanagawa, which opened up Japanese trade with the U.S. After being the president, I retired and eventually died. First, my wife and I, Jane, we returned to New Hampshire. Unfortunately, while we were there, Jane developed tuberculosis, so we decided to travel. We sailed to the Caribbean and then to Europe, hoping to find a healthful climate for Jane. Eventually, in 1860, we returned to New Hampshire and settled in Concord. Jane died on December 2nd, 1863, at the age of 57. She died due to tuberculosis at her sister's home in Andover. Jane was buried in the Pierce family plot in Concord. I died on October 8th, 1869, at the age of 64. I died of natural causes at my home in Concord. I was also buried in the Pierce family plot. Why do I keep saying plot?